Imagine being trapped inside a tiny mission station in the middle of southern Africa. Behind you, there is nowhere to run. In front of you, thousands of enemy warriors are advancing. You have just learned that an entire British Army column has been annihilated only a few miles away. You have around 150 men. Many are wounded. Some have never seen combat. And yet, over the next 12 hours, these exhausted defenders would fight one of the most famous last stands in military history. This is the story of the Battle of Rorke's Drift. The year was 1879. The British Empire stood at the height of its power. Its influence stretched across continents and oceans, and many within Britain believed their military superiority was unquestionable. Yet in southern Africa stood an independent kingdom that refused to submit to imperial demands. The Zulu Kingdom. Forged through decades of discipline, warfare, and leadership, the Zulu military had earned a fearsome reputation throughout the region. British commanders believed that modern rifles, artillery, and organization would quickly overwhelm any resistance they encountered. They underestimated their enemy. It was a mistake that would cost thousands of lives. In January 1879, Britain invaded Zululand. One of its columns established camp beneath the distinctive mountain of Isandlwana. The camp appeared secure. There were no trenches, no fortified wagon circle, no significant defensive preparations. Many officers believed the Zulu army would avoid a direct confrontation. They were wrong. On the morning of the 22nd of January, approximately 20,000 Zulu warriors descended upon the British camp. Using the famous Horns of the Buffalo formation, they surrounded and overwhelmed the defenders. Despite their superior firepower, the British line collapsed. Within hours, more than 1,300 British and colonial troops had been killed. It was one of the worst defeats ever suffered by the British Army against an indigenous force. News of the catastrophe spread quickly. 11 miles away, a small mission station prepared for the unimaginable. Lieutenant John Chard had only arrived at Rorke's Drift earlier that day. He wasn't expecting to command a battle. He wasn't expecting to make history. Around him, soldiers hurriedly stacked mealie bags and biscuit boxes into makeshift barricades. Some worked silently. Others asked the question nobody wanted answered. How many are coming? The reports varied. Hundreds, perhaps thousands. Nobody knew for certain. But everyone knew what had happened at Isandlwana. If an entire British camp had been destroyed, what chance did a mission station have? Chard surveyed the defences one final time. There was no artillery, no cavalry, no reinforcements, no escape route. Only a decision already made. They would stay. They would fight. Then, just after 4:30 in the afternoon, they appeared. Thousands of warriors emerging across the hills. The same army that had shattered the British at Isandlwana. For a moment, time seemed to slow. Some defenders tightened their grip on their rifles. Others whispered prayers. Many had never seen so many men advancing toward them. Then came the order. Steady! The Zulu broke into a run. Present! The distance closed rapidly. Fire! A wall of smoke erupted from the British line. Warriors fell. Yet the advance continued. Through the smoke, they kept coming. Shield against rifle, spear against bayonet, determination against desperation. Again and again, the defenders fired their Martini Henry rifles. Again and again, the Zulu pressed forward. The battle for Rorke's Drift had begun. Inside the hospital, chaos erupted. Patients too weak to stand listened as fighting closed in around them. Then came the sound of axes striking doors. The enemy had entered the building. Soldiers fought room by room. There was no carefully organized withdrawal, only desperate improvisation. Walls were smashed apart to create escape routes. Wounded men were dragged through thick smoke. Flames spread overhead. Every second mattered. Behind them, warriors burst into rooms they had occupied moments before. For those trapped inside, courage wasn't grand or dramatic. It was carrying another man when you could barely breathe, returning into the fire because someone had been left behind, refusing to abandon those who could not save themselves. Eventually, those who remained escaped the burning hospital, just moments before it was consumed by flames. The defensive line contracted. The fight would continue through the night. Night transformed the battlefield. Faces disappeared into darkness. Muzzle flashes became the only source of light. Men fired toward movement they could barely see. Ammunition was rationed carefully. Water ran low. Exhaustion settled over the defenders like a heavy blanket. Hours earlier, many had simply been ordinary soldiers stationed at a remote outpost. Now they stood at the center of one of the most desperate battles in British military history. Again, the Zulu attacked. Again, the defenders held. Some fought with bayonets over the barricades, others reloaded by lantern light. No one knew how much longer they could endure. The line bent, but it didn't break. As dawn broke over Rorke's Drift, an eerie silence settled across the battlefield. The gunfire had stopped, the war cries had faded. Smoke drifted above the ruins of the hospital. The defenders looked out across ground scarred by violence. They had survived. But survival came at a cost. Friends were gone. Others lay wounded. Many struggled to comprehend what they had endured. Only hours earlier, they had expected death. Instead, they witnessed the sunrise. Relief forces eventually arrived to find a shattered mission station. Barricades stained with blood. Buildings reduced to ruins. Exhausted survivors clinging to the reality that they had lived through the impossible. 17 defenders had been killed. Several more had been wounded. Zulu casualties remain uncertain, but historians estimate that between 300 and 500 warriors lost their lives during the fighting. Against overwhelming odds, Rorke's Drift had held. News of the defense spread rapidly throughout Britain. A nation shaken by the disaster at Isandlwana embraced the story as proof of courage and resilience. 11 Victoria Crosses were awarded for actions during the battle, the highest number ever awarded to a single regiment for one engagement. Rorke's Drift became legend, but history is rarely simple. For generations, Rorke's Drift was remembered almost exclusively as a heroic imperial story. Yet the wider conflict began with British expansion into an independent kingdom. The Zulu warriors who fought there were defending their homeland against foreign invasion. Their courage deserves recognition alongside that of the defenders inside the mission station. Both sides displayed extraordinary determination. Both sides suffered terrible losses. Understanding that complexity does not diminish bravery. It enriches our understanding of the past. History is not merely a story of heroes and villains. More often, it is a story of ordinary people making impossible choices under extraordinary circumstances. Today, Rorke's Drift is quiet. Visitors walk across the same ground where rifle fire once echoed through the night. The barricades are gone. The smoke has long since cleared. Yet the questions raised by that battle remain. What makes ordinary people endure extraordinary hardship? How thin is the line between fear and courage? And how should we remember conflicts shaped by both heroism and empire? Nearly 150 years later, the Battle of Rorke's Drift continues to fascinate us because it speaks to something timeless, the resilience of the human spirit in the face of overwhelming odds. This has been History CA. Until next time, keep exploring the past.